You're sitting in a room full of people who love you. Your family, your friends, maybe even your spouse. And you've never felt more alone in your life. And it's not because they don't care, but because when you try to explain your vision, your dream, and what you're building, they just don't get it. And that feeling, that crushing sense of isolation, even when you're surrounded by people, that's the loneliness nobody talks about in entrepreneurship. And in this specific video, I'm going to talk about something that most successful entrepreneurs experience, but almost never discuss in public or with their friends. And the isolation of being the only one who can see what you see, the burden of carrying a vision that nobody else understands, and most importantly, how to deal with it and without losing your mind and your relationships. Because here's the truth. You're not crazy. You're just the only one who can see the future that you are building. So let's dive right in. And let me describe something and tell me if this hits home. Because for me, it really did. You're building something. You have this crystal clear vision in your mind of what your business will become. You see it, you feel it, you know exactly where you're going and why it matters specifically. But when you try to explain it to the people closest to you, they look at you like you're speaking a total different language. And your spouse might say something like, "That's crazy, that sounds risky. Why don't you just get a stable job?" Or your parents might tell you, "We just want you to be secure and happy. This business seems so uncertain." Or some of your friends might say, "Well, that's cool, but when are you going to have some time to hang out with us?" Right? And that's when you specifically realize they do not see what you see. They don't understand why you're working 80-hour weeks. They don't get why you turned down or why you turned down that great job offer that you got, right? And they cannot simply comprehend why you're so obsessed with this thing that doesn't even exist yet. And here's what makes it lonely specifically. You cannot even blame them because they're right from their perspective right? And again, from where they are standing, you do look crazy. You are taking risks and you are sacrificing stability for something that is uncertain. But from where you are standing, you are building the future. You're creating something that will change everything, and you can see the finish line even when everybody else just sees you running in one specific spot. And that gap between where you see what you see or what they see, that is where lonely lives, between the gap of your vision and what they are seeing specifically. Now, again, here's what makes it even more isolating, this whole entrepreneurship journey, right? And think about this, even your team, the people that are working with you in the business, they don't see the full vision either. And again, you gotta be realistic here. That's not criticism, it is just reality. You hired them to execute on certain tasks, to handle certain roles, and again, to complete and execute on your vision. But they're not carrying the weight of the entire vision, right? They're not lying awake at night thinking about where the company will be in 5 years from now. They're looking at every single piece of the puzzle, right? They're looking at the entire picture, right? Or they're not looking at the entire picture, you're looking at the entire picture, and they're just seeing a little piece of that puzzle, right? And you know specifically the ad campaign you're running today in, setting up a product launch in 6 months. You know all of this, right? And you know which positioning is right for the partnership that you need perhaps in 12 months, or where you're going in 5 years. But they don't need to know that. They just need to hit this week's metrics, right? And that's exactly how it should be, but that also makes it lonely, right? Because you cannot explain the full vision to every single body, right? And even if you tried, they wouldn't carry it and understand it the way that you do, because simply it's not their vision, it's your vision. You're the architect, you're the construction crew, you're the director, you're the actors, and you are the captain of the ship. And guess what? Captains are lonely because only they can see the entire ocean and know where the ship specifically needs to go, right? Your team sees tasks, you see the destination. Your employees, they might only see their paycheck, but you see the empire. And your contractors or 1099 employees, they see your projects, but you see the legacy of what you're building, right? And that is unfortunately the burden of leadership, and it's heavy and it's lonely. But here's where the loneliness gets really heavy. Every major decision, guess what? It's on you and only you. You should hire, or basically ask yourself, should you hire this person? It's your decision. Should you fire that person? It's your decision, right? Should you launch this product? You decide. Should you pivot your strategy? You decide. Your ads isn't working? You better figure it out, right? And here's the kicker. You can only ask for advice, but ultimately you're the only one who has to live with the consequences. Your mentor can give you guidance, but they're not signing the payroll checks, right? Your spouse can support you, but they're not making the strategic calls in your business. And your team can share their opinions, but they're not carrying the ultimate responsibility. Every decision lives or dies with you. And that weight, that constant pressure of being the final decision maker on everything, it's exhausting, I know, and it's lonely, right? Because even when you're in a room full of advisors, even when you have a supportive team, and even when you have a loving family, at the end of the day, you are the one that truly understands the stakes, right? You're the only one who sees all the variables, and you're the only one carrying the full weight of the business on your back. And you cannot, unfortunately, just offload that. You cannot share it, and you cannot make it somebody else's problem. And that's exactly, unfortunately, that's exactly what it means to be a leader, right? That's what it means to be an entrepreneur. And that is specifically what it means to carry a vision. And nobody tells you how lonely that is specifically. And here's the part that makes basically here's where it gets really messy in your head. Sometimes success makes the loneliness worse and not better. Because you'd think that when you start making good money, when the business starts working eventually, and when you start hitting your goals, you'd think that's when people would finally understand, right? That's when they will finally get it. But here's what actually happens in my experience. People will get more confused, right? When you were broke and grinding, they thought you were crazy. And now that you're successful, they think it was just luck or timing or was just easy. And you'll see they'll say things such as, oh, must be nice to make money like that, or you're lucky you found that niche so early on, or I wish I could work from my laptop and make that kind of money. But they still don't see the vision. They just see the results specifically. And what they don't see is the 3 a.m. strategy sessions. They don't see the failure of the multiple launches that you've had, right? And they don't see the difficult decisions and the calculated risks that you have to take on a daily matter, right? And they don't see the years of figuring out before it finally clicked and came together. All they see is the Ferrari. They don't see the 10,000 hours in the garage, right? And somehow, even that makes you more lonely, because now you cannot understand and bond over the struggle, right? Now you're just the successful one and people assume it came easy for you. And your old friends feel weird around you right now. Your family starts treating you differently. And people ask you for money or opportunities. And the vision that you carried alone, it succeeded, right? But you're still alone, just in a different way. And there's another layer to this loneliness. And because what you will find is that in entrepreneurial communities, masterminds, groups, you will still feel alone. Because now you're comparing your vision to their vision, right? It always becomes the grass is always greener on the other side. You're making maybe 50 grand a month and feeling left behind because somebody's making 500 grand a month. Maybe you've built a 7-figure business and feeling small because somebody else just exited their business for 8 figures. And you basically achieved what most people dream of, and you're still feeling inadequate because somebody else achieved more, right? And that loneliness basically shifts from no one understands me to I'm not good enough compared to them, right? And when you're in a room full of other successful entrepreneurs, people who do understand the grind and people who do get the vision thing, but now you're lonely again in a different way because you're measuring your journey against theirs, and it's very, very bad if you start doing that because you're never going to be happy with yourself, right? And again, you're going to be lonely because you think everybody else has figured it out and you're still struggling, even though you looked and prayed perhaps for the vision where you are today, right? I can guarantee you watching this, ask yourself, did you think you were going to be where you are today 5-10 years ago, right? There's probably something in your business that you could be happy and thankful for something that you wished you had 5 or 10 years ago, right? Now, again, your friends and your family, right? Or let me rephrase, that person that is making 500 grand a month, they're looking at the person making $2 million a month, right? And that person who exited for 8 figures, well, guess what? They're probably looking at somebody who exited for 9 figures, right? Everyone is comparing each other to other people, right? And everybody feels behind. Everybody feels lonely in their journey. Because here's the truth about entrepreneurship that I figured out the hard way over, a period of 10 years. There is no finish line where the loneliness ends, right? There's just a different level of loneliness, right? You're gonna be lonely at 10K a month because nobody gets why you're grinding. You're gonna be lonely at 100 grand a month because people think it's luck. And you're gonna be lonely at $1 million a month if you hit that because people treat you differently. And the loneliness doesn't disappear with success. It just changes its form, right? Now, what actually helps, right? And what do you actually do about this? How do you deal with the loneliness without losing your actual mind and your sanity? And here's what actually helped me. Number one, just accept that it's part of the job, right? Stop basically expecting people to understand because they cannot. And guess what? They're not supposed to in the first place. Your spouse isn't supposed to see the full vision, right? They're not building it with you. They're supporting you while you build it. And your friends aren't supposed to get why you work so much, right? They have different priorities to you, and that's okay. And your team, well, they aren't supposed to carry the weight that you carry. That's literally what leadership means, right? And once you accept that the loneliness is just part of carrying out a vision, it becomes less painful. You stop resenting people for not getting it, and you stop trying to make them see what you see. And you start accepting that you're the architect, right? And architects work alone on the blueprint before anybody else can see the building, okay? The second thing that helped is basically find your small circle. You don't need everybody to understand. You need 2 to 3 people who do, right? Find other entrepreneurs at your level and people who are building something real, people who understand the weight of building something great, right? Not masterminds with 100 people filled where everybody's just bragging and, holding up trophies, right? Small, intimate relationships with people who get it is really, really important, right? And people who can call you at 2 a.m. when you're doubting everything and has your back, right? And people who don't judge you for the decisions you have to make. And people who understand what it means to carry a vision that nobody else sees, right? At the end of the day, you don't need a crowd, right? You need a small crew, and it's hard to find those people. And when you do find those people, stick with them, right? The third thing that helped for me, right, is just to talk it out. Some people will just journal it out. I'm not a big person and proponent for journaling, but a lot of people love journaling, right? Because the loneliness often comes from keeping everything right here in your head, right? The decisions, the stress, the vision, the doubt, all of it swirling around in your head with no outlet. And if you're anything like me and you struggle with ADHD and you don't have an off switch, it becomes even worse, right? Because then you find yourself laying awake at 2 a.m. in the bed, thinking about your sales calls the next day, thinking about how you can acquire more leads, thinking about the business, right? Get it out of your head, right? A lot of people will just write it down or record voice memos to yourself. I do that a lot, right? Or ultimately, if you're really struggling with this, talk to a therapist who specifically understands entrepreneurship, okay? And Again, you don't need them to solve it, right? You just need to externalize it so you're not eating it, or you're basically not being eaten alive from the inside, okay? And please remember, they'll see everything once it's built, okay? Because your family might not see the vision now, but they will when the business is thriving and providing for them, right? And again, your friends, they might not get it now, but they will when you have the freedom to show up for them on your terms. And your team doesn't see the full picture now, but they will when the company becomes what you said it will become. And the vision is lonely while you are building it, but once it is built, everybody sees it, everybody gets it. You're not crazy, you're just early, right? You're not alone, you're just ahead. And remember, the loneliness is temporary, right? The vision lasts forever, right? Now, here's the final thing I want you to understand specifically. The loneliness is actually a gift, even though you might not think it and feel like that right now, right? But loneliness is actually a gift, because the fact that you can see something that nobody else can, that is your superpower. And the fact that you're willing to carry a vision that others think you're freaking off your mind and crazy, that's what separates you from the 99% of the people. And everybody wants the results of entrepreneurship. You know this, right? But most people can't handle the loneliness of this journey. So when you feel those feelings of loneliness, right, that is a signal that you are on the right path. Because if you feel the feelings that the 99% of the world feels like, guess what? You're going to be part of the 99%. But if you feel something inside that most people don't understand and most people don't get, you are on the right path. Because at the end of the day, they want the freedom, but they cannot handle being misunderstood, right? The 99%. The 99% want the wealth, but they can't handle the isolation that entrepreneurship brings, right? The 99%, they want the success, but they cannot handle the vision of building everything by themselves, right? You can, and that's why you will make it, right? And the loneliness isn't a sign that something's wrong. It's a sign that you're on the right path. So please keep that in mind, because anything worth building requires you to see it before everybody else sees it, right? And please remember, vision is always lonely at first, right? That's how you know it's a real vision. If everybody could see it, it wouldn't be special. It would just be obvious, right? But you see something that isn't obvious yet. You can see the future. You can see what's possible. And yes, it is lonely, but it's also powerful, because one day everyone will see what you specifically saw, and everybody will understand what you built. And they'll finally ask yourself, how did you, or they'll ask you, right? How did you do it? How did you see it, right? And you'll remember this lonely season and you will smile, because you know that this was the price of the vision and everything was worth it, right? So again, if you're feeling lonely right now, just remember, you are on the right path, right? If you're feeling lonely, you're part of the 1% club. Keep going, keep building, and be great. And other than that, I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.